Earl, how's it going? Welcome to the Expert Circle podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
coming at us from Grand Junction, Colorado, with Mission Ready Tree Services. Um, cool name, cool brand. Look forward to getting into your story, hearing about your time in the service, maybe some lessons you learned there, how that um, impacts your business. And so, yeah, tell me about how you got started in the tree care industry,
Okay.
or origin
Uh,
story. Go back farther if you want. Yeah.
well, I grew up doing carpentry with my dad, and then joined the Army. And when I was getting ready to get out of the Army, I stopped one day to buy my wife some flowers. There's a florist that kind of operates out of her garage near where I used to live. And we were just talking, and she said something about how she doesn't have any money because she spent it all on cutting her tree down, and she had this massive cottonwood trunk. It was probably still 30 feet tall and 4 or 5 feet in diameter. Big tree still left. I mean, it's just a trunk, but the tree must have been at least 90 or 100 feet tall. And she said she paid $10,000 to have it removed. And so here I am. I was a linguist in the Army and didn't really, I mean, I grew up, like I said, I grew up doing construction. So I knew about using a crane. I actually, we cut firewood a little bit when I was growing up, but I didn't have a lot of background in tree trimming or tree removal or tree pruning. But I looked at that project and I was like, I know how much it costs to run a crane, and I know how much a chainsaw costs, and I knew I could get that tree down for half of that $10,000 and still make a
Yep.
pretty healthy profit.
Yeah.
So I just started thinking about it, and I ended up talking to a friend, and he said, you should talk to this guy, another guy that he knew. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Yours.
And they, he recommended that that I talked to this guy that was getting out of the business, and he had a bucket truck. And so he was a Department of Corrections officer. And so I just showed up at his house. He had the truck parked out front, but I showed up at his house. And so he came to the door with a gun. He was like, what are you doing here?
Yep.
And I was like, I don't, I'm just here to look at your truck.
Yep.
If you're selling it. So, anyway, long story short, I ended up borrowing some money, a little bit of money from some friends, and bought that truck, traded in. I had a F-250 that I traded for a dump truck. That was my daily driver at that point, but I traded it for the dump truck, and then a chipper. So I had the kind of the three big things you need to do the work.
Yep.
So anyway, before I did all that, I had surgery. I was in the Special Forces unit, and we had a jump where I got hurt pretty bad. So there was about 2 months where I was essentially forced to stay home. And I started thinking about this tree business. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go follow the city in Canyon City, Colorado, had a tree department. And so I just followed them around and watched what they did. And there was a guy on the crew that he would stop his crew and say, hey, Earl, come over here. I want to show you this, and he would explain the processes and why he did some things and didn't do other things. And so I learned a lot just from watching these guys that did it every day.
That's interesting. So how did you get these guys to let you tag along?
Yeah, I was just walking around. I had surgery on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Because I'd torn my rotator cuff in this parachute jump. And so when I was there watching them, I had one good arm, so I would just help him pick up branches or whatever. Yeah. But I told the guy kind of what I was thinking, and he just took over my education from there. He's just like, oh, now you need to, this is why I cut the small branches and I send them that way, and then the big branches I send this way. And the reason is when you're cleaning up, it saves a lot of time if you don't have a big rat's nest, and just kind of things to pay attention to that, I'm a linguist, I'm a nerd in the Army. I don't know these things.
But he was feeling bad for you because you were in the sling and you got empathy training. Okay, everybody, taking notes. If you want to get expert training, throw a sling on. Okay, got it. Yeah. But cool for you too to ask and reach out and be willing to learn. And some people have ego and they just want to try to do it their own way. So you had the self-awareness to know that you knew what you knew and didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah, and I think you said the word ego, and I think definitely having the humility to say, hey, I'm not a tree guy. I'm learning about this from scratch. So anything you know and want to share with me, I think that opens a lot of people's mouths to say, hey, look, I'll teach you because you're willing to listen, willing to learn. And in the environment I came from, at that time, I was in the special forces, and the same idea applies, that you can learn a lot if you keep your ears open and run your mouth less. It's a hard thing to learn, but humility, at times I've had it. I think when you can apply that, you can make a lot of progress. But if you just walk out there and are all prideful, like I know what I'm doing and you can't teach me anything, you're going to find out some lessons that you didn't want to learn real quick.
So special forces, that's Army Rangers. What's the special forces division?
So that's the Green Berets. I'm not a Green Beret. I wasn't a Green Beret. I was on a special operations team as a linguist.
Oh, cool. What languages do you speak?
Russian and French and Japanese.
Я говорю немного по-русски тоже.
Неужели? Почему?
Трудный язык. I'm half Russian on my dad's side, so I learning a little bit later in life, but it's a difficult language.
Yeah,
you got to be crazy to learn Russian.
Russian is. Я согласен. I agree with you.
I lived in Russia. I went back right before COVID for a year. It was a super cool trip and really interesting, and especially with all the stereotypes about Russia at the time. And then the people were just so friendly, and not one person that was weird about me being American. They were so warm and welcoming.
Cool.
And culturally, they all watched the same, movies and YouTube videos, and like just culturally, like there's so many commonalities that you wouldn't expect. Like the world's so small now with technology. So yeah, it's interesting.
Where in Russia was that? It's interesting.
I went to St. Petersburg for about 6 months, which was great. So they had the white nights there where it wouldn't get dark all night, and you'd just be walking the streets of the city, and it's so beautiful, at 4 a.m, which was super cool. But then the winter came and it was dark all day, and only be light for 2-3 hours a day. So I was getting like a little bit depressed. I'm used to Southern California here. And so I'm like, okay, my Russian at that point was a little bit better. I'm like, I'm ready to go south. So I went to the south of Russia, to like Sochi and a couple cities south of Russia. And it was beautiful and great weather. The food was much better down there. They're in the breadbasket. Amazing food, and lived down there. I had this apartment for $100 a month in like the best city in the whole, best street in the whole city. And just everything felt free, like monopoly money, and the people were so sincere. That was probably the biggest takeaway. People were very sincere, not a lot of sarcasm, and really genuine people. Like once you got to know them, they would, really, if you broke through the icy exterior, you like had a friend for life, So really
that's cool. Awesome. What an awesome experience.
So a little over a year over there. And I was going to go back as well, but then COVID happened. here
Huh.
now. Yeah, nothing but good experiences over there. Uh, so linguistics, interesting. So you said Russian. What other languages?
Japanese and French. So
Wow. So like
um,
some
French.
Romance languages and then Japanese. So Japanese and Russian, like they're like the hardest ones. Why do you pick like the hardest? Is that part of your personality? You're just ready to go after difficult situations?
No, no. I learned Japanese growing up, and I actually lived in Japan for about 3 years, and then I joined the army, and the army said we want you to learn Russian,
Got it.
and so I learned Russian in Monterey,
Wow.
California, and
And your
then
father was in the forces, in the armed forces?
no,
Yeah. No. Okay.
no. I just went. I ditched out on a semester of my sophomore year, and
Cool.
then um, another. My last, so I graduated a little bit early from high school, and so what would have been my last semester, I went back, and then I went back again. So all total was about 3 years.
And you're
So
teaching English there, or what were you doing at that time?
when I first went over there, I was just in school. Um, there's a, I was out in the middle. So my brother had been there, and he knew some people, and they knew some people, and
Yep.
it turns out they were yakuza, the
Okay.
mafia there,
Well, so you're
and
connected.
well, it was interesting. Anyway, so the people I actually lived with, they have a place called Daisogen no Chisai na Ye, which means little house on the prairie,
Yep.
and the place that they owned was, it's out in the country, out in Hokkaido, so really far from Tokyo, and that was like a tourist trap. So they would have buses stop there all the time, and a bunch of tourists would get out and they would have lunch, and the owner had horses. He was in the cavalry and in the Japanese army, and um so he had horses, and these tourists would get out and ride the horses, and
Yep.
so and then the my host father built log cabins, and so I worked with him for on the weekends, like when I wasn't in class and stuff. I'd work with him, and sometimes I would go into Obihiro, which is about an hour and a half bus ride away. So
Yeah. Very cool. You
anyway, and
wouldn't
then
build log cabins in Japan.
yeah, it's pretty unique thing. Like not very many people were doing what I was doing in Japan. And they weren't just like kits. These were, it's called a Scandinavian full scribe log cabin. So
Yep.
the log itself has to match perfectly on the log below it, like the course below and the course
Yep.
above match.
And that's chainsaw work. Was that the beginning? Kind of woodworking.
Yeah. So they use a crane to hold the log, suspend it, put it on the logs that are perpendicular to it. Anyway,
Yep.
you take a compass and a marker. They used an ink. Our equivalent would be a chalk line, but they used an ink line. They'd snap that line, and then you would scribe that line on the log above, and then you invert it, and then cut that out with a chainsaw.
Wow.
So pretty complex process, but it's done. I guess that they do it a lot in Scandinavia. I've seen one in Colorado here. I've seen one log cabin that was built that way.
Yep.
Beautiful.
I want to go to Japan. In my mind, it would be interesting for me to learn the kind of mindfulness and putting meaning into everything, and so some kind of rituals that they do everything with a lot of purpose.
Yeah.
Did that time affect how you live your life and even run your business? And
for sure, 100%. Especially those formative years. I was only 15 when I moved over there the first time, and my parents were like, hope this goes well.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I hope it goes well too. I don't know what I'm doing, but it sounds like a lot more interesting than Arizona, where I grew up, and a lot less hot. So I was happy to go and be, having an experience that was much different than the one I was having at home. So, and it wasn't like home was bad. It was just, I hated the heat. I hated Arizona summers, and everything about what I did over there, even if it was like the monotonous stuff of their lives, to me it was new and different,
Mm-hmm.
So every day was kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah. Same for me when I was in Russia. Everything's an adventure. They all want to move to America, and I'm like, oh, this is fun and weird and different and crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super cool. Okay. So you speak French, Japanese, Russian. Do you speak tree language? I had a tree here in Malibu, and he do like a lot of work for us every year. As a property manager, maybe I don't know, $40,000 worth of work a year or something
Wow.
crazy. Uh, and he said he had one time where a tree spoke to him and told him it was going to fall over, and then he communicated to the clients they didn't trim it, and then like the next day it fell over or something. Yeah. So no moments talking to trees, Earl.
I've heard trees squeak like that when they're getting ready to crack and fall over. So yeah, I speak their lingo. I mean, I know what
Helps if you're in California here and doing yoga and whatever weird stuff we do out here.
Yeah.
Taking some psychedelics, maybe. You gotta
shrooms help.
Yeah, that helps for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working on your tree language here. Still working on that. Yeah. Okay, so you're in a sling, you're learning the ropes, and then you started working for another company as a climber. You dove right into starting your own
so
biz.
Yeah, I went from that. I had about a year left active duty in the Army, so I had to recover from that surgery because it was pretty. It was not a long recovery, but it took a few months, and then I was at that point where I'm like, I'm going to ETS here in about a year. I need to make a go. I have a wife and kids. I need to make sure that their support is in place. That if I can make a go of it, I'm going to go ahead and start doing that right now. So I started taking college classes at the same time because I still had to go to work 9 to 5 or 4 to 2, whatever. Mm-hmm. But so I started taking earth sciences and life sciences. I had a degree in business already, but I felt like I needed to know more specifically about botany and about the stuff I'm going to be dealing with every day. I wanted to at least be a subject matter expert on the basics.
Yep.
I didn't really feel like neither anybody that I would be talking to in my business nor I had interest in the different kinds of cells at different layers in the tree and things like that. I mean, it's interesting and it's stuff you have to know to pass the test, but in reality, I don't think it has any application in my day-to-day work. And so I felt that early on.
Yep.
And it turned out to be pretty true that once you start geeking out, there's a certain group of your, a certain percentage of your customers that are like, oh yeah, go on. And most of them just kind of gloss over and they're like, yeah, I don't care about parenchymal cells or the phototropism. I don't care. Just cut my trees and give me the bill,
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I had an excellent professor that taught the botany class and I was eating up everything that was taught in that class. It was just 100% applicable. So he specialized in teaching us Colorado trees and making it specifically interesting to us and to me in particular. Most of the kids in my class were younger than me because I was like 32.
Yep.
34. How old was I? 15 years ago. I was 35, I guess.
Okay.
Give or take. And anyway, it just helped me because the county that I lived in didn't have any tree experts. It had guys with pickups and chainsaws, but it didn't have anybody that knew anything about the the scientific aspect or the physiological aspect, the biological aspect,
Yep.
um, um, the anatomical aspect of trees. And so all the stuff that I was learning was super, super interesting. And I started to geek out a little bit. But I realized real quickly that, like I said, there was a lot of people that are completely uninterested in all that stuff. They
Yep.
just kind of want you to do the thing and go away.
Sure.
There's a lot of other people that care a lot about their trees and they want to be educated on why their tree is dying or what would help their tree.
Yep.
And that's where I felt like I really made a lot of ground because I could educate them and
Yeah.
they would apply what I taught them.
Yep.
So,
That's super cool. Like, yeah, I've had a number of these conversations with tree, trimmer guys, and not a lot, applied that type of learning, I think, to the process. I think maybe this is coming from you learning multiple languages. You're probably a lifelong learner, and that's something that you're able to absorb that information. And so that's interesting. So even for, like, let's say a young guy, that's getting into the biz, would you recommend kind of going to night classes and taking some classes like this? If so, what were the most impactful classes? So maybe if they're going to just do at a community college, take one or two classes.
yeah, if you can go to Colorado State University in Pueblo and find Professor Brian, that's the man to talk to. If you can't
Oh,
have that, if you can't do that, take just a botany class.
mhm.
And I think the biggest thing, I mean, I do feel like I'm a lifelong learner, even though um, I don't I don't have time or take as many classes as I used to. But we have continuing education as certified arborists that we have to do. But I'm I feel like learning as a new guy. I think learning more than your clients know will help
Yep.
you get a lot of credibility because I've had a lot of clients. They're like, "Oh, you're an ignoramus tree guy." They just assume that because you're a tree guy, you don't know anything, and
Yep.
um, it happens often that people. I have in reality, I have more education than most doctors. I have
Sure.
200 plus hours of college,
Yep.
and so I don't. I I always think it's funny, but at the same time, I find it satisfying when I can take somebody that initially treats me like I'm an ignoramus, and then by the end of the conversation, we're talking as equals, and they're not condescending with me.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but it's really satisfying, especially if someone has an open mind to be able to teach them and show them a few things. And usually, it's not rocket science. It's not
Sure.
nothing real tough.
Yep. Yeah. So you got to throw out the scientific names of some of these trees, and
Yeah, stuff like that. Kind of as soon as they realize, oh, he knows more than me, I'm going to stop trying to snipe, sharpshoot this guy.
Yep. Yep.
Then
Yeah.
then it's fine. The kind of the
You want to
pressure's
be
off.
relatable. You want to be relatable, but also drop in a couple little, scientific words or nuggets
Yeah,
there. Be a good balance.
yeah. And I don't do it just for that effect, but I have noticed that effect.
Yep. Yep.
And a lot of times I've had very few, but I shouldn't say a lot of times. I've had very few clients that actually know more than I do,
Yep.
but I love it because I'm like, oh, you were a biologist for the Forest
Oh,
Service? Awesome.
yeah.
Teach me something, like,
People love their trees, right? This gets to the heart of it, that people really love their trees. They're emotional about their trees. That's why
yeah,
they might be a little catty and, have a little bit of attitude with you because they're worried that you're not going to appreciate their trees as much as they do.
yeah,
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of interesting. You just meet, so everybody's got a tree, right? And so you meet rich, poor, smart, not smart, and everything in between. And it's kind of interesting to see how very different each client is.
Yep.
That's one thing I didn't think I was a people person, but it turns out that I really like to talk with people and kind of get into their brains a little bit and see not just what they know, but what they're trying to accomplish with me there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've made half of my clients I would call friends, you know?
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. Okay, so then you get out of the service and you jump right in. Doing your own thing, or you started working for someone else?
no. Yeah. So the guy that I bought my truck from was awesome. He was a prior service guy himself. His
Yep.
brother actually ran the tree tree company, and he just helped.
Yep.
But his brother took a job, and so when I bought the truck, he's like, well, let me come and show you a couple of things. So he just taught me like basic knots and
Yep.
things like that. But he gave me at least 2 or 3 full days of his time, and wouldn't accept payment for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that he taught me were things that I use every day, you know. Again, I learned a lot from watching that tree crew in Canyon City, but I also learned a lot from this guy with both of my hands now could actually tie the knots, could actually send the branches and do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy would say, hey, no, don't tie off there, because that's going to break, and you want to put it here, and just things that you need to know.
Yep.
And then over time, I think I counted like 45 employees. There's a lot of prisons in the county where I started my business. There's 11 prisons. And I got a lot of guys that were fresh out of jail that would come. It's hard work, and it's hard to find people that want to do hard work, you know.
Yep.
And these guys, a lot of them are kind of desperate when they first came out, and so I had some guys that were willing to learn, and then the guys that worked with me the longest, I had a couple that were with me for about 7 years before I moved to Grand Junction. Those guys were capable of doing most of the things that I could do. But in that time, I had everything from really good climbers to guys that knew nothing but had no fear. I hired this Marine, and I'm like, hey, this is the deal. And like a month later, he was climbing with the 201, not afraid, you know. So, yeah, it was interesting and cool to see guys that would, because there was every aspect of it, you know, on that scale of I have no fear to I fear everything. I was the safety guy for an oil rig, and I know that, you know, you have to have this PPE on at all times. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But that's not most guys' focus, you know.
Sure. So you need some tough guys, you know, vets and ex-cons. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we got away from the ex-cons eventually, for the most part. But you know, everybody needs a second chance in life, and it was a good place for people to have that second chance. And
I'm sure they appreciated it. Very cool. So your dump truck, your daily driver, did you take any girls on dates with this truck, or tell me about that?
No. Nope.
You're locked in the work mode.
Yeah. At that time, I already had 5 kids. So,
okay. So you're already on.
My wife was not impressed with my dump truck, but
yeah. That's pretty cool. So you had 5 kids at that moment. How old were you then?
I think I was 35.
Okay. So your fam's probably been a big part of your why. You named your business mission, you know, your mission-oriented business. So yeah, tell me about what your mission is and how that, you know, integrates into that.
So when I first started the business, I had no idea like the scope and scale. I didn't know which direction I should go as far as who my what percent of my clients would actually be emergencies. But my thought was, I want to go down to Texas and Florida and Louisiana, and when hurricanes happen, I want to go down there and help people get trees off their house. Right?
Wow.
That was my thought.
Yep.
But I didn't want to go down there green, not knowing what I was doing, and so and hurricanes aren't every day. So I started the business just talking to my neighbors and like, yeah, I got trees that need to be cut, and yeah, you can work for like $15 an hour to trim my trees, and I'm like, okay, and then probably 2 years after I started the business, there was a hurricane. I'm like, you know what? I should back up. So when I started the business, my thought was, I need to prepare for my exodus from the military. And then what I'll do is I'll finance this equipment. If I can pay it off inside of a year while still having my income from the military, that's a pretty good indicator that I can make a go of it after the fact, right?
Yeah.
So I had it paid off in like 6 months. All I was doing was working holidays and weekends. And I'm like, man, I make enough on one job that I could replace my income from the military really easily.
Yep.
Pretty quickly. So I was thinking it was good, but my wife was not. She's very, this is outside of anything her family did or my family did. And it was kind of a risk, and it was kind of a big ask for her to have faith in me that our family was secure in this completely new thing.
Yep.
But on the other side of it, it took us about 6 or 7 years to figure that out. But on the other side of it, now we're like, man, if we had not taken that risk, I would have stayed in the military, or I would have taken a job, or I would have gone to college and then worked for somebody else. And nothing against working for somebody else, but once you work for yourself and you realize, if I just do X, Y, and Z, I'm the boss and I get to choose my days off. I get to choose when my family is going to have all my time, And so, and this was pre-COVID. So COVID changed a lot of that perspective for people. I think they realized how empowered they were by just prioritizing things the way they should be, making family first and making work second, I think. But anyway.
And you still got 5 kids? You have more than 5 kids now.
Yeah, I have 7 kids.
7 kids. Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
4 sons and 3 daughters.
Wow.
And 2 grandbabies.
3 daughters. Very cool. What's the oldest, youngest? What's the range there?
The spread is 20. My oldest is 24, and my youngest is 7.
Okay. That's amazing. Yeah, I saw a picture on your website. Anybody that's watching, missionreadytrees.com. You have a beautiful picture of your family up there, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good humans making more humans. I like it. So that 5-6 year period of just kind of figuring out your business to where you felt like it was just really solid and you were, in your full stride and you guys were where you needed to be, or?
Yeah, because I didn't understand the ebb and flow of phone calls. That was probably the hardest thing to learn. Was you don't get a phone call. I don't. And I was, so after this education and I got my certified arborist, I was the only certified arborist in my county and 2 adjacent counties. And so the federal government, the state government, city government, the railroad, any of them had jobs. They're like, well, call a certified arborist, and I was it. So we quickly became the big show in town. But in spite of that, I was, at that point, I would be booked out for like 2 or 3 months. But come Thanksgiving, nobody called until tax returns. So from mid-November till March or April, I guess, almost no phone calls. Literally maybe 1 or 2 a week.
Yep.
And if I converted half of those, then that would be, one job maybe a week.
Yep.
So what I had to figure out, and this was the hard part, and it made January and February pretty stressful, was that if you don't book in August and July, if you're not booking January and February, come January and February, you're going to be hosed unless you can store up and plan on not working and lay your guys off.
Yep.
And some guys do that. Some guys around here do that. They lay their people off for 2 months and they just go collect unemployment for January and February.
So were you able to get some of those kind of state government contracts to be pushed back until that slow time to kind of space things out?
Yeah, we did. Okay. Thankfully, but I did that with everybody because, winter's the best time to work on trees, period. And so once I figured out, hey, if you really like this massive centerpiece ash in your front yard, why don't we wait till January to trim it? Because I'm booked out right now for 2 months in July or August.
Yep.
And so by the time I shut down my business in Canyon City 5 years ago, and I moved it out to Grand Junction, at that time, we were booked out for 6 months, easily.
Yep.
And solid, So, yeah, that was a hard learning curve. But once I understood that simple little, and nobody's going to tell you that. I mean, if they're your competitor, no one's going to say, hey, you might want to make sure that you got work lined up for January and February because nothing's happening.
Yep.
Or else just plan on saving your money and having it to hold your people over with. I talked to another tree guy that said he more or less pays his guys on a salary in January and February to keep them around in July and August, And I thought, well, that's cool because, they don't have to go on unemployment. They don't have to go through that. They have a consistent paycheck.
You don't want to lose good guys. Why is tree trimming in the winter, dumb question maybe, but the best time to do it?
So in the summer, your tree's totally active and it has a big investment. Leaves are an investment. And your tree expends a lot of energy to create leaves. So if you're taking a high percentage of that canopy away, of that green canopy, you're taking away that tree's investment because the leaves are where the carbohydrates are produced through photosynthesis, and then come fall, it's stored in the basement, which is the roots, right?
Okay.
So in the fall, once that's down there, the tree is not devoid of, but doesn't have very much nutrient left in the tree for you to take when you trim.
Yep.
So besides being a time when there's less, I shouldn't say fall, because there's a lot of fungus that are active in the fall. So, but winter time, the fungus are pretty much done. At least they're slowed way down, and there's no active bugs. So when you trim, there's a lot of Siberian elm here in Colorado, and so if you trim a Siberian elm in the summer, you're always going to have what they call wetwood or slime flux. Okay. And if you trim that same tree in the wintertime, it's almost none. So your tree looks better.
Slime flux, is that so when you're like cutting open the tree, there's a better chance for like fungus to get inside, or how does that work?
In the fall, the fall is when fungus is most active. The spores are in the air a lot more in the fall.
Yeah.
Which is a downside to planting in the fall too. So there's that. But anyway, yeah. So slime flux, it happens in mulberries. There's a lot of mulberries around here, and Siberian elm. So people around here call them Chinese elm. But that slime flux is not in all trees, but in those particular trees, because there's so many of them, you're always going to see this nasty. It's the sap flows and
Yep.
then it's not stopped because there's not a mechanism to stop it. And then the bugs are like, hey, sugar. So they get in there and they start reproducing. And then the tree puts off that flow doesn't stop. So eventually there's the salts and it forms this cake, like light brown cake. It looks like frosting. Gross. And if you dig into it with the stick, you'll find all this larva and stuff growing in it. So it
Yep.
can last forever. It can last the life of the tree. I've cut on an elm tree that had it for 30 years. These people trimmed their tree like 30 years prior, and they had this particular branch that was hanging out over their lawn, and underneath that cut, there was a hole in the grass that had been there for those 30 years.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, so
See.
once it's done, it's done.
Yep.
And you can't really undo it.
Wow.
But
Wow.
if you'd made that same cut in the wintertime, you avoid all of that. So
Yeah. That's a good maybe thing to think about, if it is the slow season in the winter, to educate clients maybe with like an email or with some way to make them aware that this isn't the time to hibernate and hunker down. This is an okay time to still get work done. Do you communicate that somehow? Like, how do you communicate that to clients?
so I'm the guy that shows up and does the estimates. I do everything in person. Ordinarily, especially if it's close by. If it's an hour drive, then sometimes I try to do stuff, with pictures and over the
Yep.
phone conversations. But yeah, I try to educate them on those things, and it's not hard to explain. And once they understand it, they're empowered, and they understand. Oh, this guy, not only does he care to help me understand, he already understands. I don't need to. He's not a hack.
Yep.
I can
Yep.
just trust him with my trees.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing for all of us, I think.
The kind of year-round part of your educational thing, it's not a bad idea to bring that up, at all times of year, just to let people know that they should be thinking about,
Yeah.
projects not only during the summer when things break or whatever.
Yeah. I did a radio ad a couple of years ago, 8 years ago or so. And I talked about that. I'm like, hey, this is the time of year in the winter when you really can be more aggressive with your tree and make bigger cuts and make more headway if your tree is kind of out of time with trimming and pruning. So now is the best time. It's the easiest time on your trees. And I always tell people trees are like people. They like to be worked on when they're asleep. And
Yep.
so, give us a call and we'll come take care of them in the wintertime before they wake up and
Sure.
start spending that energy.
Yep. Any lessons from the, Army that have, impacted the way you run your business? What are maybe one or two of the things that, have been the biggest gifts for you, and have translated into how you've, grown your business and led your team?
Well, I have a few employees that are, there's three of us that are prior service guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you hire a prior service person, and this is true for like police, and I have another guy that's a firefighter. He was an engine chief, and I don't have to tell him it's important that you be on time.
Yep.
I don't have to tell him you need to be trustworthy. I need to know that you're going to be honest. If something happens, I need to know that you're going to just let me know, hey, this is what happened. This is how we need to fix it, or what do we do? Yep. Anyway, just being forthright about issues, because issues happen. And so that part's been cool, because we have this understanding going into any interaction that these are kind of like basic things that we already know.
Yep.
But as far as the military goes, there's camaraderie amongst people who have either been in the military or who, like their family or their people that they love or respect, have been in the military. There's a
Yep.
camaraderie there. And I don't limit it to people that have just worn the uniform. I think families pay the biggest price. Every time I deployed, I was thinking about my kids and my wife and how they're dealing with all this crap without me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they kind of get the short end of the stick, because it's me that they say, hey, thanks for your service. And I'm like, these are the people that made the sacrifice.
Yep.
I had the easy job. I had to focus on one thing, and anyway. But one thing I really like about the military is the understanding that you get that we're all, brothers and sisters in arms, and we're all, as Americans and as people that are just living life, we're not real different from one another, and we need to focus on our commonalities instead of our differences. And I feel like it's a lesson that's easy to miss, especially if you have never been part of a big melting pot like the military is, where you're like, this dude's from Texas and that guy's from Guam and this one's from Ohio.
Sure.
And we all kind of think the same thing. We all feel the same thing.
Yep.
And, it's just, there's a lot more good.
How does the military avoid that? I mean, that's a big lesson we need to learn as a society right now. How does the military, there's a bigger mission that supersedes all the political stuff or any kind of, personal differences. If that mission is placed above, or what is it that unites?
I'm sorry, are you asking me? I missed something.
Yeah. What is it that unites people and makes all the BS, differences, kind of go to the wayside, I guess. And
I think it's just that. It's just realizing that we're all brothers and sisters, literally and figuratively, that we have so much in common. And if you focus on your differences, you're going to find them. But if you focus on the positive and the things that you have in common and that you can move forward on, and use that as a foundation to move forward from, then you have a much better footing than if you're trying to tear each other down.
Yep, that makes sense. We're just all humans at the core, and just getting down to brass tacks. We're all humans, and we're all, yeah. What if someone wants to hire a vet or create a business that is a place where guys that serve thrive? What are the things that you would recommend in terms of creating that culture where that can happen? I know a lot of guys that you hear this, like they have such a strong mission, in the armed forces, and then they get out and they get into some job, and it isn't a mission driven thing. And as you guys, mission ready tree care, do you try to incorporate some kind of mission or greater purpose in that, or it's mainly the camaraderie that these guys, feel comfortable with, or I'm sure that is maybe the most important thing, but is there also a mission element?
Well, I'm a devout Christian, and I feel like that's part of me, my core.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't expect that of anybody. I don't exact that of anybody. But I feel like most of the people that know me know that, and so, personally, and these are my beliefs. I feel like it's important to kind of be an example of what a Christian should be. And I try to be honest with people, and I try to be helpful. We try to take part in, service opportunities, going out and helping people. Someone's broke down on the side of the road, or, people looking for work. I think
Yep.
reaching out like that will kind of elicit the kind of response that you want from people. And not that you should do it for that, but it happens.
Yep.
That when you try to do the right thing and do right by people, people that do right by people will also want to be with you or around you or support you, knowing that, crap happens to them,
Sure.
you got their back.
Yep. Yep. So just caring, genuinely caring about people, and being of service,
Yeah.
having a servant mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. What are you facing now in your business? What are the biggest challenges you're facing, now? What does this season of your business look like? Any goals moving forward, or you're just kind of in maintenance mode because you've been doing this for a hot minute?
I honestly, I don't have big goals as far as changes. And I feel like I should. I feel like I'm derelict in my duties. That I should be focused on the game, that the thing that I'm part of. I did just start using an advertising company, and they've done some videos and stuff, and I think that's going to change the game a little bit for me, in terms of who sees us.
Yep.
There's a specific demographic that we're trying to work with, and it's also like geofencing and staying in the area that we want to be in. Logistically, it makes sense to try to be in a small area instead of trying to be all things to all people. There are new companies from out of state that moved in here and bought up other companies, and they are all encompassed. They're doing everything from dropping off rocks to fixing sprinklers and cutting trees, and just they'll take any and every contract. But they're a full spectrum outside, whatever you need outside business.
Yep.
And I'm not interested in doing that. But I guess if I have a goal right now, one thing that I am doing that I didn't do before is I'm getting into the tree health management.
Okay.
And that's something I never saw myself getting into, but they passed a law it came into effect in January of 24, making it illegal to use what's called a neonicotinoid. And it's just a pesticide that it can be particularly dangerous for pollinators. So it'll kill bees and butterflies and whatever gets on the plant if it's applied at a time that shouldn't be applied. So they made it illegal to sell in the state. And I used to tell all my clients, hey, rather than pay somebody to get this injected and pay $200 or $300 per tree, go buy this quart of this chemical and mix it in a 5-gallon bucket, pour it on your tree, and follow the directions. But that's basically what you're doing.
Yep.
Now, instead of paying $20 for that quart of fluid, they have to call somebody. And rather than, I've been turning business to all these other companies that do these injections and tree spraying and all these services that I don't provide or have not provided for the last 14 years. I've been saying, yeah, call those guys or call those guys.
Yep.
And I have never had one call me back and say, hey, thanks for that referral. You just turned thousands of dollars in my direction.
Yeah.
And so now that I have no alternative, there's nothing I can really prescribe and say, go buy this and do it yourself.
Yep.
I'm going to start doing it. And so, that's from what I understand, I've done workshops with ISA for injections. I did a few in years back in Denver, and the workshops were taught by the company reps, and the numbers they were throwing out would make a lot more money than I would make doing tree care, which is a lot more dangerous. And, um, even though, squirting pesticides isn't as sexy and dangerous and fun as tree work, but
Yep.
it makes just as much, if not more, money.
And do you need to be a certified arborist to do those jobs?
Not at all. In
Okay.
fact, it's a completely different pipeline to become a licensed applicator.
Interesting.
And it's not something you can just say, hey, I want to take a test, or hey, I want to start doing this. You have to work with somebody else. And so
Yep.
we're starting to do that, but it's a process. And at least in Colorado, I don't know about other states, but Colorado, it's a process and it's a lengthy one. So
Yep. Interesting. Very cool. Awesome. Earl, so many nuggets. I learned a lot, actually. Anything, you want to share, about your journey, lessons you've learned, along the way? Even people getting into the trades, I know, there's not enough people in the trades, even with AI, in the future, a lot of young kids that are maybe pursuing white collar jobs or thinking more about going into the trades. What kind of advice are you giving to your kids, these days? What do you want to leave the world with here?
so my brother died like 6 years ago from pancreatic cancer, but just before he passed, he didn't know, when he was diagnosed, he had about 20 days from diagnosis until he passed. But he and I had a conversation about a year before that. And he and I were out in my shop and we were just talking. He's like, so how's family? And so I'd say something about my kids, and then I would talk about, yeah, they're working with me on these jobs. And then, oh yeah, did I tell you I got this client, this big job, and we're looking to buy this piece of equipment, etc. And I kept turning the conversation back to work and business. And then he'd say, well, how's this kid? Oh, this kid's good, and then he worked with me, and then this is what we did. And then and I'm talking about business again. And he did this like 3 times. And he's like, hey, I've asked you a few times about your family and you keep talking about your business. He said, you need to remember what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, that's what I would encourage anybody who's starting a business to do, is to look at why why you go to work, what you are working for. You're not working for a dollar. You're working for time and experience with your loved ones, whoever they are.
Mm.
Not, it's not a competition to get the most stuff in the bank or the coolest car or the boat, or those things are all great, but the stuff that really matters isn't stuff.
Yeah. And not easy to do as a small business owner to turn it off, right?
Yeah.
7. So
Yeah.
I could be a lesson for me as well. Have those moments where you turn it off.
Yeah.
What matters. Well, your family's beautiful. It's cool to see. It is cool that you guys are working together too. I watched the episode of Landman, the show, and Jerry Jones was at the deathbed of one of these guys, and his advice. I don't know if this is true in Jerry Jones. I think it is true in Jerry Jones' real life. He said, work with your kids, because that's spend most time working. So if you can work with your kids, then you're going to spend more time with your family. So it is cool, I think, that you do work with your kids, and I'm sure they appreciate all those times together with you. And so,
Eventually they will.
all those difficult lessons, and I think we've lost that, right? If you used to be a blacksmith, you would apprentice to your father, who was a blacksmith, and we've lost that kind of chain of lineage of doing jobs and trades. So it's cool to hear your kids are working with you and learning some tough lessons they don't maybe won't even want to learn, but will appreciate down the road.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Eventually you come to that point, you're like, man, I learned a lot and I didn't realize it was kind of like osmosis. I was there and I was doing it, but I had no idea all these lessons being taken up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome, Earl. So if people need to find you and connect, you guys are on Facebook, or where are you guys most active on?
Yeah, Facebook. Yeah,
Facebook,
on there.
Mission Ready Trees, Grand Junction. We need, yeah, awesome certified arborist to take care of your trees. Maybe learn a couple things too about your trees. It's always fun to um, learn about your trees. Earl's your guy.
Thanks.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Have a great day.
Cool. You
Take
too.
care.